Hello and welcome folks to day 3 of Special Projects pack number 8 of course. This one is probably my favourite car out of all 10 builds that I've done in this pack, partially because of how excellent this car already is to be honest, but partially because of my idea behind it. This one is inspired by a couple of things put together, and of course I've done the design for this one myself, so you can grab the link to that down in the description if you want to add it to your library. I call it the Mugen Double R Limited. The reason why I call it limited is of course that's a very popular Japanese thing to put on their rarer cars, the limited edition cars. But for short, the Mugen Double R. The idea behind this is a combination of, as I said, two things. One is the Mugen Type R version of the Civic, which they did actually build a few years ago. I think it was the FD2, I think, the sedan version of the Civic, which I reviewed in real life. Not the Mugen version, but the Type R. That one is finished in red. It has the Mugen kit, so that was the visual inspiration for this one. But in terms of its performance, in terms of its spec, this was my what if. What if Honda and Mugen teamed up to basically make their answer to the Mitsubishi FQ400? What if they proved that a front-wheel drive car could be that kind of machine, but with their own distinct take on that? So in other words, a 400 horsepower Type R to take on the Mitsubishi FQ400. To me, that sounds pretty badass. So that was exactly my goal with this one. And the results pretty much speak for themselves. So as far as the aero build, I don't recall if this one has the wide body, but you can see as soon as you look on the design whether it does or not. As far as the actual build itself, we have the sports silencer. I did buy the racing one as well, just to test which one worked better, but you don't need to buy that one later. So just go for the sports silencer. Stage 1 weight. I've left it on sports hards because, again, you want it to have more of a road car vibe. I kind of contradict that in a second, you'll see with some of the parts, but just go with it. As far as the club sports section, we've got the power restrictor and the ballast. For the semi-racing stuff, the low RPM turbo, the fully customised ECU, then we've got the fully customised diff. As far as the racing stuff, the anti-lag actually is fitted. I find it to be quite a beneficial one with this car. Like I said, you don't need the race silencer. We've got the race filter, the intercooler, and the pads, manifold, and discs. I've gone for the slotted. I've said before, doesn't really matter what you go for. Of course, those are wild overkill for a road car, but I'm just having a bit of fun with this one, so you could go, downgrade them to sports if you want it to be more accurate, I guess, to real life. We've got the racing clutch and flywheel, again, not exactly realistic, but we're having fun. The fully customised suspension. I've left the transmission completely standard, though, so that one definitely has more of a road car feel. For the extreme stuff, the only thing I've done is the steering angle adapter, especially with a front-wheel drive car, having that increased turn-in angle can really help. And then for the ultimate section, there's nothing purchased there. So it's actually quite an affordable build, certainly compared to the last couple that I did. And as you can see, the numbers aren't too crazy. 390 horsepower, 1350 kilos. Now, in terms of the point level, you're looking at 577, at least at the time of building this, and of course that will change depending on updates, but that's still quite a usable level. We've got the sports hards fitted, naturally. As far as the suspension, I've dropped the ride height to 120. Sounds pretty high, but as you can see, looks about right. I wanted it to look realistic. I didn't want it to be slammed. We've got 3 on anti-roll, 32 for compression, and 42 for the rebound on the dampers, 2.15 for the springs, half a degree of camber on the rear, and 1 on the front. We've actually towed in on the front by 0.10. That, of course, is to counteract some of that front-wheel drive understeer, and it certainly does, because this thing turns in like a monster. I've got no tow on the back. Sometimes, and any of you who follow my rally Special Projects builds, you'll know that I like to put a lot of tow out on the back of a front-wheel drive rally car because it really helps to get the back end out. For road use, though, I don't find it to be as necessary. As far as the diff, we've got 10, 30, and 20. For the transmission, of course, as I said, that is standard. It's already pretty much good enough, though. As far as the restrictor and the ECU, the power is untouched. You want 63 kilos of ballast, at least if you want to go for the weight that I've got. I wanted it to feel kind of realistic, achievable. 1350 kilos isn't too crazy. And then we've put that all the way, well, actually not all the way, 25% I should say, of the way toward the rear. just to give it a nice 60-40 split. Then for the downforce, we are running the maximum on the front and the rear. And of course, you don't need to worry about fitting parts, because if you download the visual design, you get those fitted already. We've got the low RPM turbo. I've got the anti-lag set on weak, because again, I didn't want it to feel too much like a race car, too much like a rally car. So I've just got a weak amount of anti-lag. And to be honest, that feels like it's pretty much good enough anyway. And then you can see all of the other stuff fitted here. So a pretty simple build, and sometimes the simple ones do tend to be the most fun. So of course all that remains is to jump out to the track and show you what it can do in practice. Now I think the reason why I love this build so much is not only because of how well it turned out, but because this is something I wish had happened. And that, if you really boil it down, is kind of what Special Projects is all about. What if? I love imagining vehicles that were never made, but I believe should have been. And usually it's for marketing reasons or cost-related reasons that things don't get built, but I just love imagining these cars that should have been built, could have been built, you know, like what if Audi had put the V12 diesel from the Q7 into an R8, as they did in the concept version, and made a legitimate diesel supercar. You know, all of these ideas of things that could have happened but didn't. This to me is such a cool concept of what if Honda decided to really take on Mitsubishi. Obviously the timeline doesn't add up, but ignore that. And took on the FQ400, but almost like as a like spit in the face to the four-wheel drive fans, just to say, look what we can do with the equivalent of an FQ400, but just using front-wheel drive. And even though I'm not the biggest of front-wheel drive fans, typically I do find this to be a fantastic car in this game. I'm not even a Civic Type R fan, but I love this thing. It's so fun to drive, it's so quick as well, and you could definitely use this competitively, even on the sports tyres that it comes with. So if you do decide to use it, I hope you have a ton of fun with it. Like I said, this is my favourite build out of these 10 personally, but for now, as always, thanks for watching.